Crudo sventura non stringe ai miei languir, come che prima da tant'anni dura, profondo il mio soffrir. So I wanted to start with a little phrase from Pace Pace Mio Dio from La Forza del Destino. And I just wanted to show you one thing that I think is really important to consider when we're singing. Because there's a lot of technique advice that I give, like a ton. And that can sometimes get us tied up in a knot. And we can start thinking that we have to do things a certain way all the time. It always has to be like that. And I just want to tell you that no matter what is right and what is wrong, like there are certain things that are definitely not as helpful in singing, right? And things that are more helpful. But despite that, the things that are more helpful should not be dogmatic in your technique, meaning at the expense of freedom and at the expense of the phrase and the aesthetic of the line. You are not to enforce a position on your voice while you're singing if it doesn't feel right. Okay, and this can go for tongue position, jaw opening. For example, I teach a lot about where to open the jaw, where might be a good idea to just be aware that the tongue is more forward, the jaw is more open, the head position. There's a lot of positions that I talk about, and then I'm sure you hear from other teachers as well. But this does not mean that in the moment of your singing, first of all, you're not going to hit everything correctly. It's just not going to happen. So you have to just get over that. That's part of being a singer. And the second thing is, if you are trying to inflict a position upon your voice while you're singing, you're most likely not singing in your freest position. So despite the fact, now when you're in the practice room, you can check things like, okay, maybe can I make my voice easier if I open a little bit more, or I close a little bit more, or, I put my tongue here, or I do this with my jaw. You can definitely check those things in the practice room. That is for sure. But when you're actually going to sing a line, and this includes in your practice, I will be very clear about this. This is not just in performance. You need to practice doing this in your practice. So you need to practice not inflicting a position on your voice. This is so important. And, I see a lot of semi-amateur singers. They like to inflict positions on their own voice, and they like to inflict positions on, all of the singers out there that are having wonderful careers. And they're like to say, oh, but this singer should do this and they do that. And the truth is that different sounds come from different shapes, right? And in the moment, a sound may be created. There's a color, there's an expression that happens that is not just technique. And when we're open to that, we can create freedom in our instrument. Now, if we start veering off a little too far, then yes, in our technical practice, we want to bring ourselves back to center. But we have to allow for that deviation, because that deviation brings freedom into our singing. So I think, when I'm speaking to professional singers, I'm sure you'll understand this, but I'm speaking to students, people learning how to sing, because this is something you can get really caught up in when you're learning technique. Like, oh no, I have to do it like this, come hell or high water. It's always got to be like this. And if it's any different, it means it's wrong. And that's just not true. That's not true. And it's not going to be helpful if it's tying you up in knots. So only if something is, if you have a real problem, like singing a note, like it's not coming out, then yeah, you need to obviously go work it out. But if you're singing pretty well and, it's just a matter of taste and tweaking a note right or left, making it sound a little bit darker, a little bit brighter, whatever it is. These things shouldn't be hard and fast rules, and they should be allowed to flow with the body and with the intention of the musical line. So I hope that helps. As you're digesting all of this technical information, you also understand where I'm coming from. That's you're absolutely not going to achieve perfection ever. Like, just forget about it. And so that the perfection comes from the expression, right? What you're delivering and the colors that come from that, how your voice is functioning. And it won't be perfect, but it will be free. And that's the important thing. Okay. So keep that in mind while you practice, and we'll see you tomorrow.